Hi, and welcome to the Controlled Aggression Podcast video edition for our patrons of the podcast. Thank you for being on patreon.com. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about bite equipment, the stuff that we use, so I can give you some references to the canine equipment that we use here at Tar Heel Canine Training and our School for Dog Trainers. This is by no means an exhaustive list of all the things that we use. But we'll give you a pretty good idea about the different types of sleeves and suits and so forth that we're interested in using. I want to start out just by saying that if you're working a really young dog, you're going to start out with a little rag, flirt pole, maybe a leather rag on a string, things like that. And then if you've listened to our podcast on grip development, we use a leather strap. We've got some videos of us training a couple of dogs, Fire and Kira, on the leather strap, so you can check out those videos that are on Patreon for that information. Once we graduate from the leather strap, then the question is, like, where do we go? And then we've got a couple of things we got to keep in mind when we are moving off the leather strap to the equipment. One is, what's our goal? Are we looking to now, really sort of hammer out grip development in a sort of continuation? Are we going to dabble around a little bit with some targeting? Obviously, for our police dogs as well as for our PSA dogs, we're concerned with inside arm targeting, back of the arm targeting, so tricep, bicep. We also want to introduce the dogs to leg targeting. So I'm going to start a little bit with the first two pieces of equipment that sometimes we'll use actually before we even get to the leather strap to bring about a little bit better grip or bring about a little bit of targeting in the dog. So for example, this first piece of equipment I'm going to show you is what's called a puppy wrap, and we get these from Euro Joe. If you are looking for a supplier in the United States, you can go to Muddy River Canine in Pennsylvania. My good friend Tim Karchnak is a Euro Joe dealer, so you can get these from him, and this is where I've got mine from. It looks like a little tiny leg sleeve, and it goes together via Velcro. It's got two pieces of Velcro here, so you can make it a little bit tighter. For example, if you wanted to make this actually into a bicep sleeve, to start teaching targeting, a lot of times we'll get in a chair and get low for the dog, and we can take even a puppy if they're pretty precocious and get them to start learning what this target area looks like. We'll sit in the chair, put them in there, work them a little bit, slip it to them, and then we can also put these obviously around the leg as well if we want to get some leg targeting going on. So that's another way in which we can use this particular puppy wrap. It is referred to as the versatile puppy wrap because you can do so many different things with it, from bicep to the legs. You can switch the legs up a little bit as well. Not something that you want to use with an older dog. This is typically younger puppies that we're using this with. Once they get a little bit older, this is not quite enough protection to make you feel good. So that sometimes I'll use before I get to the leather, up to, let's say, teething. That would be something that I would mess around with. And then we also have this I got from Rocasport, but a lot of vendors have these, sort of Viper pillow looking things. It's a big barrel, basically. And what I found with some younger dogs that have a little bit of a busy grip initially before we put them on the leather, you can let them bite on this. It's not really super hard. And then actually when they bite it, they compress it and make themselves a little sweet spot in there, which keeps them from going side to side. So I found this has some utility in terms of teaching a little grip stability if we have a dog that's a little bit busy. So it's like a little baby barrel sleeve for the dog in wedge form. So that's something that we've been messing around with just to incite a little bit of stability in some of the gripping that we see with some of the young dogs. Now, as I said, once we pass the teething stage, we tend to put most of the dogs onto a leather strap to teach them to bite with their back teeth and their back molars. And then as we come out of the leather strap, one of the nice things is you sort of save yourself the typical puppy development regime of going through, 75 sleeves of different hardnesses until you get to, let's say a chomp. So you can come out on the other end of the leather strap work, and if you do it well and you do it right, and the dog has the right genetics, you can end up going right onto a chomp sleeve, right onto a wedge, okay? So as we, start moving past the leather strap, one of the sleeves that I really like, which you can get from, and this is for HST, it's a really nice wedge, which is, let's say, a little bit of a step below biting a chomp. So sometimes as they come out of teething, I'll get them on this a little bit first. This is a nice little compression wedge. It's got a nice sweet spot in the middle. I like it because it's really easy to hold, for me to hold with one hand. And then as I start teaching the dog to come into the grip a little bit, teach them to chase this popping sleeve into the shoulder area, I can line this up with the left side of my body as we're working on bringing the dog into the grip. So as we use this with the dog on the back tie, you can actually put it all the way on your arm if you want to. I tend to just hold it at the middle post right here, perfectly lined up with the sweet spot on the sleeve, and so I can usually work the dog nicely here. As we get the dog used to biting here on the back tie, we start doing some drag-ins, and then finally some sends. I really like the sleeve for the fact that it's got a synthetic cover. It's a little slick, so the dog really has to come in and grip. And as we take the dog to the left on the catch, which is going to mimic what they're going to see when we put them on the light suit eventually, that they're going to have to come, clear their legs on the left side, and come through the catch. They learn to hold on through that catch as we start doing some sends. So we can kind of teach the mechanics of the courage test right as we come out of the leather strap work, get them on this HST, and then get them coming through on some sends. Then typically we'll go back to our mainstay, our chomp sleeve, which again is going to really challenge that young dog's grip, right? The chomp sleeve, as we all know, if you listen to the podcast on grip and a few of our other podcasts on, on sort of sleeve, on our podcast on sleeve progressions, the chomp sleeve really gives us a nice sweet spot in the middle. It's a compression sleeve. It's also got harder plastic on either side, near the elbow and near the hand, which basically makes it uncomfortable for the dog to bite in those areas. They want to move toward that sweet spot. So it becomes a sleeve that kind of self-trains the dog to be able to adjust back to that middle spot on the sleeve where we want them. Also, the compression action of these chomp sleeves, when they're fairly new, when the dog bites down on it, the sleeve is pushing back, and so it helps to build the strength of the grip with a little bit of opposition provided by the actual mechanics of the sleeve. As the sleeve gets older and older, you're going to lose some of that action, so you want to replace that chomp sleeve for the next dog. But it will devolve into a fairly decent, just training sleeve for an IPO dog. If the grip is not something that you're looking to train, once it gets to be an older sleeve, you can really use it still for that. But I like them when they're fairly new. Now, of course, this chomp sleeve is from Hard Dog Requisites. They have an entire line of chomp sleeves to shorty sleeves to even harder trial sleeves. And of course, you can take the time to go through all of that with our police dogs. Pretty much we get them on a chomp and then on a newer chomp, challenge the grip a bit onto a shorty, and then we're really moving to our targeting to get the dogs onto the suit eventually. So that covers everything up to our chomp. And again, if you want to go a little bit further than the chomp, there are hard dog sleeves that go in compression, harder and harder. And those are called the shorty series, and you can take that as far as you want, all the way up to he's got some pretty hard sleeves that are trial sleeves that will really challenge the dog. So once we have done a good job of developing the initial grip imprint with this versatile puppy wrap, and we've moved on to our wedge sleeve, and then through the chomp and the shorties and so forth. And the next thing I want to mention to you is what happens if we have a dog that's got a little bit of busyness in the grip, or he's not opening his mouth far enough. And that's where this sleeve comes in, and this is a barrel sleeve that's made by Horton's, handcrafted in Atlanta. Basically, a barrel sleeve is a hard leather cylinder with a jute cover. And this cylinder forces the dog to really open their mouth. You may see when the dog is working on this particular sleeve, they don't get a completely full grip every time, especially if you have sort of a shorter mouth dog or a dog with a little bit of a smaller head. But it is forcing that mouth open when they come in and take that initial grip. And that is what's really important. We use this a lot in conjunction with our bungee table, especially to teach the dog to really come in and open that mouth wide on contact. Once we start to train that dog to come in and open the mouth wide on contact, then when we go back, let's say, to a chomp sleeve, or even if we move on to targeting sleeves and so forth, that'll also help make that initial grip on contact nice and full when the dog makes the strike. It'll also challenge that grip quite a bit, so that if you have any busyness in the grip, between the effects of the bungee and the barrel sleeve, it'll help to stabilize the grip as well. So that's another important sleeve that we use. And again, my favorite brand is the barrel sleeve that comes from Horton's, handcrafted in Atlanta. Now, once we are done with our grip development and we want to start thinking about targeting, moving toward the ultimate goal, putting the dog on the suit, my next one is this particular sleeve. This comes from Kurt USA, and it's a bicep targeting sleeve. Kurt USA in Texas, and this sleeve can be worn obviously on the left, and it can be worn on the right. And this sleeve gives a nice pocket right here for you to work with. The real thing that they did that was really important was it made the upper part of the sleeve a little bit wider, so that you can actually fit your arm in there if it's pretty big. A lot of the Belgian sleeves that we used before this were actually made for a Belgian ring, and they were made for forearm bites. And so the upper part of the sleeve was not really conducive to turning it around and making it for a bicep bite or even a tricep bite, which you can put on here, right? Now, for boys with bigger arms, you want this Kurt USA sleeve because you can really get it on and get it off a lot more easily than your typical just Belgian sleeve that's made only for Belgian ring. This one is manufactured basically for PSA and bicep targeting, so you know you're getting the right piece of equipment for the job. All right, so that's our bicep targeting sleeve. That is in preparation for getting the dog on the jacket. And I want to say something real quick about, we got this jacket from our newest podcast sponsor, which is ALM Canine Equipment. And Taylor ordered this particular jacket where it is competition weight in the torso, because we don't encourage a lot of torso bites, back bites, stomach bites. We want protection from them, but we don't encourage that type of biting. We want our triceps, our biceps, our forearms. So this is basically a training weight arm with a cover around it. And you'll notice that this training weight arm is going to give a little bit of that same barrel effect that we get on a nice heavy bicep sleeve. So the dog will be moving from that Kurt USA sleeve onto the bicep or the tricep on a jacket like this. Now, of course, you can't take them from that sleeve to a comp weight suit, but if you're doing a lot of dogs and it's dog after dog after dog after dog, and you're getting beat up a lot, you can get this in a thickness that's going to be a little bit more comfortable for you if you're training a ton of dogs at your facility. So this is one that was designed with training weight arms and comp weight in the actual torso of the suit. And again, I've got a pair of pants that are semi-training up in the thigh area, training weight below the knee because that's where my sensitive spot is in the shins. And so for me, I can take a lot more bites and more comfortably with a little bit more weight down there. I also have another set of pants, which are comp weight as well, for proofing the dog and so forth. And I have a comp weight jacket. So get some equipment. You should, if you're serious about being in this business, you need a few different weights of suits, thicknesses, and so forth to work on the things that we want to work on. Eventually, as the dogs get ready to go in the handler course and then get deployable, we want to proof them on these really thin suits. That's a really important thing for us to do, and so we've got to get them to comp weight, covered suits, and things of that nature. All right, so next thing is we have a sleeve that helps us teach targeting to get the dog in the bicep. For me, my favorite leg sleeve when we're doing the initial targeting in the legs and then eventually going on to the bite suit is a Euro Joe leg sleeve. Now this leg sleeve for me, it's one of my favorites because it comes up just a little bit above the knee. They do make sleeves that come up to hip. Most manufacturers have sleeves that come up that high, but for me, for the initial training, I want to keep the dog below the knee if possible. I want to teach the mechanics of the head turn, the countering, the moving with the decoy without giving them so much room to make a choice about where they're going to eventually go. So this keeps the target area a little bit smaller and keeps the dog in a spot where we want them so that they come and they center up on the actual sleeve as they're coming in. And of course, these sleeves can go left, they can go right, it doesn't really matter which side you want to train them on. In PSA, typically we teach the dogs to go left side because most of the decoys are right-handed and they're going to drive with the stick in their right hand. Makes it a little bit safer for the dog, for them to use their most dexterous hand when they're driving the dog. All right, so that's my favorite leg sleeve. These leg sleeves and these bicep sleeves come in weights, and so if you go on the websites to order them, you might say, well, how heavy one should I get? If you've done your grip training properly and you've gone all the way through some shorty and spent some time on the chomp and the shorty with the leather strap and all that sort of stuff initially, you're going to want like a 3 at a minimum. We usually get weight 4 in the leg sleeve, weight 4 in these bicep sleeves. And that's how we go there. All right, the last thing I want to talk a little bit about as we're proofing dogs and getting them ready for the bite suit, or excuse me, for deployment, is this ALM Canine Equipment hidden sleeve. This is one of my favorites. It goes on super nice. It's tied to the arm all the way around, so you're not dealing with a sleeve that has a lot of area in the back part of the tricep. It's nice and form-fitting. When Arno made this sleeve for us, it was kind of a prototype to take a little bit of that extra material out from behind the tricep, but you'll notice that there are no laces on this particular sleeve. That's the thing I love about these ALM hidden sleeves. Every single other brand of hidden sleeve that you can get has some form of lacing. That lacing will come from the thumb all the way up to mid-bicep here, and if it turns a little bit during the work, you have a dog with a big head, with a big mouth, invariably you're going to get teeth that go into those laces and put some puncture wounds in you. I can't tell you how many puncture wounds I've gotten by working dogs in a hidden sleeve, but it's a lot, and always from them coming through the laces. So this takes away that particular issue, so we don't actually have to worry about those laces and the dog coming through there. The seam is basically at the back of their mouth when they're biting the sleeve in the proper fashion, palm to the ground, so you don't compress the radius and the ulna, which I believe are the 2 bones in the forearm, right? So you have that particular picture going into the dog's mouth, and so very stable sleeve, stays where it's supposed to be. Your hands are out so you can manipulate distractions and that sort of thing. But really a great piece of equipment from Arno ALM Canine Equipment. This is the a standard, basically. They also make some that are for bigger arms than this one, which is nice. But this works on most folks and gives a nice high profile or a low profile picture with the hidden sleeve. That is ALM Canine Equipment. So that pretty much takes us through all of the major pieces of equipment that we're using through the initial stages where we're doing foundation work with the dog, defense drive development, prey drive development, as well as drive channeling and into our targeting. We spend a lot of time on equipment with our targeting work and finally getting them onto the bite suit. For me, the bite suits, again, we've had a lot of really good luck with ALM equipment. We liked it so much, we actually asked Arno if he wanted to be one of the new sponsors on the podcast, just because we've been ordering so much of his equipment, and we really feel like he makes a really good job, does a really good job for all of our students who are ordering bite suits, as well as the other folks that we're ordering for. Everything he makes handcrafts, does a great job of putting together a super nice suit. If for some reason something's not perfect, he will work with you, he'll take it back, he'll fix it up nice for you. So that is our run through of all of our basic equipment here. So as you're watching the videos on Patreon, you can see why we're using certain types of equipment in certain situations. So hopefully that'll help you understand what's going on while you're watching the other videos. If you want to order any of this type of equipment, I've given you the names of the manufacturers, really easy to go on there. We'll put a little bit of this, the contact information in, or at least the websites of all these places. You can check them out in the notes to this particular podcast on the Patreon episode. So I hope this helps. As going forward, we're going to have more of these little video podcasts for you if you're a patron of the podcast. These are going to be things that we put on just for you. So again, thank you for your support of the podcast. And if you have any feedback for me at any point, anything that you want to see us do, some short videos on, some podcasts for our patrons, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. Train hard, train smart, be safe, and we'll see you next time.